Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever in the world you are connecting from today to our Hacking HR live chat series. This month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and next week, actually, from when we are recording this live chat, next week is going to be Mental Health Awareness Week, and well, we take over the past few years, we've taken very seriously all things mental health at Hacking HR. And in the month of May, we put out a lot of content just focused on mental health and well being. And we do this for the entire year, but particularly this month, we are much more focused on making sure that you have the tools, the insights, the ideas, the recommendations, the community to help you out with all things mental health. And all of these conversations that we are putting together, and I've said this in all of the previous conversations, but I'm going to say it again. All of these conversations are designed to first and foremost help you. You as a human, you as a person, you as an individual. This is for you. Evidently, most of you have an impact in the work in your workplace, and especially if you work in HR, your footprint, your impact footprint is even larger than for an individual contributor, for example. So the conversations that we're having here then are for you to improve your mental health and to improve your well-being, but also to provide some insights that can help you become better in the work that you are doing for and with others. So I'm hoping that you think about these conversations in that way, first for you and then for the impact of the work that you do in your organization. For those of you connected on live right now in any of our social media channels, please let us know where you are connecting from in the world. Just post it in the chat. It would be awesome to know where everybody is. If you are watching this in replay, well, thank you so much for doing so. We are recording all of these live chat conversations, and all of them, all of the ones that we've had in the past 2 or 3 months, all of them are available in our website. So go to hackinghr.io, click on live chats, and there's a mosaic of different topics in there, a lot of great conversations. So I am encouraging you to go and check them out, especially the ones that have to do with mental health and well-being, because, well, not just because it's May, but because we have to do a lot of work in all things mental health and well-being. So, very excited about the conversation today. We're going to be talking about reimagining workplace well-being and fostering a culture of purpose, connection, and transcendence. And I am super excited about this conversation because, well, not only the topic of well-being speaks to me, but the framing of this conversation from the perspective of purpose, connection, and transcendence is also very powerful and speaks very close to my heart. So I'm very excited to welcome Jessica to the screen with me right now. Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
Good morning, Enrique. So nice to be here. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being here. I am very excited about our conversation now, and I want to begin here for our audience to get to know you better. If you can please introduce yourself, let us know more about you, the work you've done, and if you want to also tell us why you wrote this book.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So, people who know me and have been following me know me as a workplace well-being researcher. That is where I've spent most of my career trying to understand what helps support employee well-being, how can employers support employees in that and their families. But before I was a researcher, I was actually a practitioner developing and delivering
Mm.
workplace well-being programs. So this is group exercise classes, the company gym, the blood pressure and health screenings. So that's what I did. And then I realized, we're taking such an individual approach. It feels like we're doing a lot of trial and error.
Mm.
Can we use research and theory to understand how to design our programs more effectively and to then evaluate them to see if they're actually working as intended? And so I shifted from practitioner to researcher, and I did that for about 20 some years. In fact, a lot of my early work focused on demonstrating the value of investing in employee well-being. And
Mm.
so I did return on investment studies and looked at impacts on healthcare costs and absenteeism, productivity. And then I shifted because I felt like we've answered that question.
Mm.
If you design a program according to the best research and you do it in a comprehensive way, support your programs with cultural support and for well-being, then yes, you can see these outcomes. But then I shifted my research to best practices and I began to dig into, okay, if we know this works, what are really the best practices when it comes to designing and developing these programs and implementing them well? So I focused on that for a little bit. And a few years ago, I started to dig more deeply into an area that I've long had a personal interest in, which is spirituality and spiritual well-being, because a
Mm.
lot of our approaches to well-being in the workplace have focused on physical and now mental health. We've got a whole month we're talking about
Yeah.
this, but spiritual health has been left off the table. And we have known for a long time that that is part of the dimensions of well-being.
Yeah.
And so I started to really dig into this area. And lo and behold, I found thousands, not hundreds, thousands of studies
Wow.
that demonstrated the importance of spirituality in the workplace, not just for individual health and well-being, but for business outcomes. And so as I was doing this research, it was during the pandemic, and I'm seeing burnout rates higher than ever. I'm seeing isolation and loneliness higher than ever. And people are being, they're more disengaged from their work. Quit rates are
Yeah.
going up. And so I wrote the book because I felt that in workplace well-being, we weren't taking a holistic approach to well-being. We have been now moving to bigger areas than just physical, but I really wanted to make sure we weren't leaving spiritual off the table, because when I examine the deeper needs that are underlying these trends that we're seeing, it has to do with what the workplace spirituality research talks about, which is purpose, connection, and transcendence, thus the title of my book. And so
Yeah.
that was really my focus, is let's use research to understand how we can design and to address these emerging needs that right now I think a lot of initiatives are leaving off the table.
Jessica, that is fantastic. Thank you so much. And I am sorry, I'm writing down so much stuff in here that I want to ask you about. So that's why you're not giving me a second to not write stuff down, because I have so many questions for you, right? But I'll begin here. You talked about before the ROI of well-being and your work about researching on the ROI of well-being. When you talk to business leaders and you tell them, yeah, this is the right thing to do for the people, and they're like, oh yeah, well, okay. But then there's a side of the business, right? There's a benefit of the business for the business. In their minds, what is the expectation as a business result from putting money, investing time, energy, resources into well-being? What is the end stage that they think is going to happen if they invest this money in well-being?
Right. So my early research focused on healthcare costs and helping to demonstrate that, look, when you support people in taking better care of themselves, they're going to use the healthcare system less
Yeah.
frequently. They're going to be more likely to show up at work. And when they do show up at work, they're more likely to be engaged in what they're
Yeah.
doing. And so we kind of went down that rabbit hole for a long time and focused on dollar for dollar, can we see this return? And then I shifted away from that and started talking about the value of investing, because there are a lot of reasons that organizations invest in their employees that have nothing to do with, oh, I've got to see a dollar to dollar return
Yeah.
in these certain areas. And so I started to shift to value, because that helps us to look at, yes, there are some cost impacts that can be measured here, but there are also the things that are a little bit softer to measure, but are extremely important. So we're seeing things like employee engagement, for example, in their work. How do they feel about their employer? Do they feel like there is some commitment, some buy-in to what the organization is doing? When they show up, do they really show up? Are they all in, or are they just going through the motions? Those are the things that actually executives care a heck of a lot about. It's harder to put a dollar sign on. I mean, you can put dollar signs on turnover, and you can put dollar signs in some cases on, well, I know when people are more engaged that we've tied it to these kinds of productivity outcomes. But some of these softer metrics actually hold a lot more weight, I think, in
Yeah.
decision makers' minds around why we would want to invest. And when we're looking at turnover rates being so high, burnout rates being so high, I feel like we can move the conversation to how can a more holistic approach support us with those outcomes. And it's not just about some of these other dollar signs that we've been focused
Yeah.
on.
And do you think they get it. And the reason why I'm asking you this question is, um, when you look at the indicators of holistic health, for an individual, for an organization, for a society, we're failing in everything. Literally, we are doing pretty poorly in everything.
Mhm.
Stress through the roof, depression through the roof, anxiety through the roof, isolation through the roof. You were reading this data point that you showed me before. I think, what was the data point of uh, half of Americans feeling that they are lonely and isolated, with the consequences, of course, that have, including people thinking about taking their own lives. And uh, so we are failing in all of these indicators, and there's a lot of root causes that originate from the workplace. And I wonder, are the business leaders really getting the impact of investing or not in the mental health, in the holistic mental health and well-being of their employees? And sometimes I go back and forth between saying, yes, I think they get it, but I don't think they get the entire picture of how significant the impact of work is on humans.
Yeah, it's such a good question, Enrique. And I like what you said. They sort of get it, that maybe they don't get the whole picture. We know from actual surveys of executives that they say, especially because of the pandemic, they know that the health and well-being of their employees matters
Yeah,
to their organizational success, to customer success, to a lot of the things that they measure on their executive scorecards. They're starting to see, oh, when my employees aren't all in, that makes a difference.
yeah,
And that means all in mentally, physically, and I think spiritually and emotionally as well. Is there that commitment? Is there that pull
yeah,
to overcome challenge and adversity in the workplace? And so I think that they understand that this is important. Where I think everybody is struggling, not just executives, but I think actually people who would be on this call they're looking for new solutions, because they're like, the stuff that we've been doing isn't designed to deal with issues of this magnitude. The
yeah,
whole shape and nature of the workplace has shifted, as I'm sure you've been talking about on Hacking HR. So we need new solutions
yeah,
to some of these more emerging and enduring problems that we're seeing.
yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, because I felt like we were missing, what does it really mean to invest? And a lot of what we've been doing in the wellness field, I mean, this is what I've been studying my whole career, has been around pulling the levers of incentives, trying
mm,
to get people to do what we paternalistically think they should be doing to take care of themselves. But we know that you can actually get better results if you can deal with intrinsic motivation. There's a lot of research on
yeah,
this. The inner drive has to be there. And when you do something like fire up people's purpose in their lives, not just in their work, in their lives, they are healthier, happier, more satisfied in work and in life. And
yeah,
that's the energy that people have to bring to work. And when we can give them that gravitational pull towards what's happening at the workplace, they've got strong relationships there, friendships, they feel a sense of purpose and calling in what they're doing. And they experience these little moments of wonder. I call them
yeah,
transcendence, awe and wonder and flow and joy. Those are the sparks that get us getting out of bed in the morning. They're the things that bring us back to the workplace and help us
yeah,
to get through some tough challenges. And so people understand how it feels, I think, to feel that aliveness, that energy and vitality that they can bring into their work. And that's what we need to
yeah.
help people ignite.
Oh my goodness, you're touching my heart here with all those words, and the deconstruction of what well-being really means, right? And I don't want to divert us in a different direction, but when you talk about people, the intrinsic motivations for them to feel that sense of awe and wonder, right, and flow at work, that to me is, it's not only beautiful, but what I is unfathomable for me is that if we're getting a little bit out of everybody by squeezing them at work,
Mm.
what is unfathomable for me is, what could we get from them if we helped them tap more into those intrinsic motivators to find more awe, wonder, and flow at work, right? And that to me is so beneficial for them individually, but also for work. And now I want to transition this conversation into this idea of spirituality, which, by the way, I love how you broke it down and deconstructed it in purpose, connection, and transcendence. So, Jessica, if you can please explain each of these components that you frame in the context of spirituality in the workplace.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this in a concise way, Enrique. I can tend to get off. And so if you need to reel me back in, please do interrupt me.
I will
Okay.
do that.
So the first one, purpose. We've been talking a lot in organizations about organizational purpose. There's even purpose-driven leadership. So this idea of bringing purpose into our work isn't new.
Yeah.
I think what we've lost sight of is the importance of individual employee personal purpose. And so whether that's somebody in HR and benefits, or it's somebody working on the front line in a factory, what we know from research is that having a sense of personal purpose in your life, again, it helps you to lean in to life a little bit more. It helps you to lean into your families, into your relationships, into your work. And again, research connects that to not just healthier, happier, more satisfied employees, but it also helps them to bring more energy into whatever they're focused in on work. And so what we know is that when you can help ignite that personal sense of purpose and then help employees to figure out, well, how does that align with what I'm doing in my work? And, this is a road that I walked down for myself. I got into this purpose work quite early. I think it was a Franklin Covey course that, focus on what matters and prioritize. Well, I was in the position where I had a lot of passion for wellness. I've been a wellness junkie since I was in my teens, reading nutrition textbooks, for goodness sakes, to try to maximize my performance in sport. And so I brought a lot of passion into my career when I first started. And I could easily see an alignment between what I was personally interested in and what I wanted to do professionally, which is I want to make the world of work a better place to be for everyone. For, my mom and my sisters and, now my nieces and nephews. Like I really keep that as a vision, but we can start to feel more and more and more removed from that. And what I've learned is that purpose waxes and wanes over the course of our lives. And so it's something that you may have a strong sense of purpose at one time, and then you find, but it wobbles a little bit. Or maybe you actually have a crisis of purpose and you're like, I am out. I'm not interested in this anymore. That is natural. Yeah. During times of transition and change, which last 3 years, how much transition and change has there been? It's natural for us to question our sense of purpose. And so that's why we need to invest in revisiting that and giving people the tools and support for that. And I think senior leaders, if you ask them, 85% of them, according to a McKinsey research survey, says that they are able to align their purpose with their work. 85% of managers and frontline supervisors and employees say that they don't believe that they can live out their purpose in their work.
Wow. And I'm betting, it's like the opposite.
Yes. And I'm betting some of the people on listening to this conversation might feel that way. Yeah. And so, we've done a good job, I think, of helping leaders to understand the importance. We haven't done as good a job at helping all of our employees to have the resources and tools to do this. So that's purpose. That's the first one.
I will hold on my questions for the next two.
Okay.
And I hope you don't mind that we may circle back to this original to the original concepts that you're talking about in here, or the first concepts that you're talking about in here when you define purpose, connection, and then transcendence. So we may be circling back to each of them.
Yes. I mean, each one of these could be a full conversation for sure.
Yeah.
So social connection, we've long known that social connection is an important part of well-being, but people tend to think, oh, well, you get that outside of work. Do that in your spare time. And I think for a lot of people, they did look outside of the workplace for quality relationships and social connection. But more and more people are spending the majority of their waking hours at work. Yeah. And when they're not at work, they're thinking about work, or they're answering emails, or they're dealing with text messages blowing up. This includes when we're on vacation, by the way. And so it's at work is taking up a greater piece of the pie during our workday, and it's engaging so much of our attention. I think employers have a responsibility to cultivate strong social connections in the workplace. And we know from the recent Surgeon General's advisory on loneliness, isolation, and social connection, half of US adults report experiencing measurable levels of loneliness. There's another stat in 2021, almost half of Americans reported having 3 or fewer friends. And that's a big change compared to only 27% saying that they had fewer friends. And so there is greater opportunity for us to say, if we're engaging people in so much of their lives, why can't we make the workplace a place that actually gives back to people? And we talk a lot about the skill sets associated with stronger social connections. So if you look at the research, it's things like active listening, kindness, compassion, empathy. These are the kinds of things that most of us learned in kindergarten or in high school are important things, right? But these are skill sets that we need to continue to work on, and we can lose sight of them. And I think during the recent pandemic, a lot of people got a little rusty with their social connection skills. And I think about some of the kids now coming into the workplace where their high school years or their college years were influenced by this total shutdown of ways to practice kindness and compassion and relating to one another. We need to bring these skill sets back into the workplace and consider them part of the well-being picture. So that's social connection.
Oh, this is fantastic! But I'm holding. I'm being disciplined here. I'm doing my best not to ask any question until you go through the 3, and then we go back. So
okay,
if you see me writing down, that's what I'm doing.
The last one is what I call transcendence, and that's a connection to something bigger than ourselves. And when we think about transcendence, that's often what we think about as spirituality. It's sort of that mystical piece. And the fact is there's a ton of research on self-transcendent mental states, things like awe. I just started reading a book. It's very thick. It rivals my early Harry Potter first editions in terms of how thick this book is. And it's all about the science of awe by Dr. Keltner, the founder of the Greater Good Science Center.
What is the name of the book?
Awe.
Oh.
Awe. AWE.
Yeah.
And it talks about the science of this and how important it is for us to experience this every day. And, it's thinking about the things like, think about the last time you had a conversation at work where you laughed out loud, or it got you excited about something, or you felt this spark of connection with somebody else. And it might have been, talking about something like, your favorite place to vacation in the world, and you find out the other person has the same favorite vacation place too. And you start to connect in different ways. Awe can be inspired by being out in nature, but it can also be inspired by being in groups of people where you feel like we all care about something that is bigger than just what we're working on. And so there are a lot of connections between transcendence and connection at work. And there are a lot of things that organizations can do to inspire things like awe and flow, which is leaning into your work so much that you lose track of time. Or it's things like experiencing wonder and joy at work, which, by the way, surveys show 90% of people expect to experience joy at work. Only 37% say they experience joy at work. It's a pretty big gap.
Yeah.
And so, these are the things that pull people in, that engage them, that make them want to come back to work the next day. And we also know from the research that when you experience these self-transcendent mental states, you are more likely to be more creative, to be more innovative. There's a perspective shift that helps us to go from right here to 10,000 feet and make decisions in a different way. And so these are extremely important things for leaders, which is why you see in so many leadership courses, you see things like conscious leadership practices. You see mindfulness. Now we have chief mindfulness officers in some organization. There is so much research that shows that when we cultivate certain kinds of practices, we can inspire these moments, these sparks of joy and wonder and awe at work. And there are ways that helps us all to make better decisions at work and to show up more fully alive and engaged in what we're doing.
No, this is absolutely fantastic. As you're talking about self-transcendence, by the way, or transcendence, I am thinking about this paper that I read, years back, about how Abraham Maslow, his
Mhm.
last stage in the pyramid of needs was not self-actualization, was self-transcendence, and that was missed. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but it was.
Mhm.
It's not included anywhere. You don't. You find the pyramid, and the last, the highest need is self-actualization. When in reality, is the need of self-transcendence. Connect with others. Think outside of yourself in terms of what your role in others, right? How you improve the lives of others, and that to me was truly fascinating. And I'm so excited that you are bringing that up to and connecting it with well-being.
Yeah, and I want to just pause there for a moment, Enrique. That is an extremely important area of research that has been, I think, misunderstood by a lot of people. And the neat thing is that researchers and scholars of Maslow have been able to gain access by working with his family to actually get access to all of his unpublished writings later in life. And now that is being brought to bear so that we can understand it better and to truly understand what he was talking about. There's actually a whole book on that. It's on my reading list. I need to read that one next. But when you talk about service to others, that's a thread that weaves through all of this. Because when
Yeah.
you talk about purpose, we know that the research connects to better outcomes no matter what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Healthier, happier, longer lives, more satisfying lives, more engagement at work, less likely to be burnt out. When you can shift your purpose from one that's focused on my goals and my success and my happiness and expand it out to have a purpose that is, how can I serve other people?
Yeah.
And that was an important shift that I made for myself in my purpose journey. Is it's not necessarily what I do at work. I could be serving donuts or coffee or conducting research at work. It's about, how do I show up in the
Yeah.
workplace? Am I showing up in a way that's in alignment with my values? And am I showing up in a way that is serving other people?
Yeah.
So there's a shift there. With social connection, a lot of these things, it's about compassion and empathy and kindness. It's this extension of ourselves and pouring ourselves into other people.
Yeah.
So that's service to others. And then with transcendence, we know that volunteerism,
Yeah.
especially volunteerism alongside other people, that is more likely to spark transcendence as
Yeah.
well.
No,
So that's a thread that weaves through all of this.
yeah, and as you are describing this, I am thinking about. Don't quote me on the numbers or the source of the research. I just remember the sort of the headline of this, but how people that go through extremely traumatic experiences, including things like the Holocaust, including things like earthquakes, um, or natural disasters, when they are connected to others, when they receive the kindness of others, they are able to recover much faster from the emotional injuries, the emotional trauma that these
Mhm.
horrible episodes create on them. And I actually wrote an article on kindness yesterday, and I found out something that I didn't know based on the research, that people who are the recipients of kindness and are recovering from surgeries recover much faster than those who don't get that kindness from others, including their doctors, in very easy daily things, as such as the doctor asking, how are you? Not just how are you feeling with the injury, but how are you personally? How's your life going? And even those kinds of questions create that moment of kindness that you're talking about, and that opportunity to improve the life of that person that is recovering from surgery. And that to me is fascinating. And then the other thing, and I would love for you to comment on this. Also, I write a lot on kindness, by the way. It's
Mhm.
I don't know. I write a lot about it. I'm drawn to that. Um, I was reading the research that shows that from a hormonal perspective, uh, kindness not only makes the life of the receiver of kindness better, as in being more joyful, happier, and improving their immune system, but it also improves the same indicators in the giver of kindness and in the observer of the act of kindness.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, it's like energy that multiplies itself. It's like we're violating the laws of the universe by doing this stuff of kindness, just by saying we invest this little bit in this and we get all these results out. And it's beautiful. So any comments on that, Jessica?
Yeah, I love where you ended that comment, because that's exactly where my mind went, is that it's not just when we ourselves are the recipient of kindness or we are giving kindness that we benefit, but when we simply observe it in others.
Mm-hmm.
There's a concept in this book that I'm reading right now, Awe by Dr. Keltner, that talks about moral beauty as one
Moral
way,
beauty.
one way that inspires awe. And moral beauty is about, when you see calamities strike and
Mm-hmm.
whole
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
communities come together to support those who are struggling the most. That's an example of moral beauty. You think of the
Yeah.
work of Gandhi and Mother Teresa, other people who've devoted their lives to service to others and kindness. That is actually one
Yeah.
of the ways that we can experience transcendence, is just observing it in other
Yeah.
people, listening to a story
Yeah.
about somebody overcoming
Yeah.
adversity.
And
And
I'm,
so, yeah, there's a lot of research on how
yeah.
we're wired for this.
Yeah. And I am thinking about Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, right? And how he
Mhm.
says, when he being a psychotherapist in a concentration camp, how he said what kept many people alive was that they knew that there was something still to be done for others. And that's the ultimate reason why that he found why so many people survived, which is they had something to do, and that something to do was not for them, it was for others, taking care of their ailing children, or seeing their grandkids grow up, and things of the kind, helping them out in that process. I think that is just so strong. Now, Jessica, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Still we see in the workplace and society so many people saying, this is fluffy, this is soft. If I am kind, it's equivalent to me being weak or being a softie, and not that kind of leader that people are, looking or seeking out to be the person leading this company. How do we battle the paradigm of kindness, transcendence, purpose, being softies, being, fluffy things, with the reality, which is they are not. They produce beautiful results for the humans, but also incredible results in performance, for example, for businesses. So how do we battle that paradigm?
We could try to convince people with the numbers all day long. And you're right, Enrique, there is a lot of research that actually points to when people are experiencing these things, when they have stronger social connections, when they're experiencing these self-transcendent mental states, or they're ignited by a personal sense of purpose. There's a ton of research that shows that is important for
Yeah.
leaders making better decisions. People show up and make more ethical decisions at work. They tend to treat their customers better. Hello, customer service goes up. So there's a lot of research that helps to connect the dots between the things that leaders care about and these kinds of behaviors. But I think one thing that can be extremely helpful is to remind leaders what it feels like to be the recipient or the giver of kindness.
Mm.
Like, I think we tend to try to impress upon people all of these numbers and research, and this is coming from an outcomes researcher. We know that story is extremely powerful, and it's not just about changing minds, it's changing
Mm.
hearts. And I think we haven't really focused our attention on how do we change the hearts of our leaders. And we do that through stories, and we do that through experience. And so bringing some of these things into a peer executive circle, for example, or a managerial circle. We always forget about the managers with this stuff. We fly the executives off to some amazing retreat in some gorgeous place like Fiji. And then all the managers and supervisors, they get some web-based 1-hour training that they're mandated to attend, right?
Yeah.
It's like we have to help people to connect with one another around these things, simply bringing it into the conversations, bringing it into your next leadership circle, and saying, well, what simple small things can we do that we can weave into how we do our work? It's not about necessarily totally changing how we do, like what we're doing for our work, but it's like, how do I show up in a different way? And then you start to look at how could we design the workplace in ways that support these behaviors?
Yeah.
So now we're talking about policies, and we're talking about, building in normative behaviors, role modeling, but we can't get people there to lean into that challenge until they've experienced it for themselves.
I am thinking about all the stories that I've heard in the conversations that I've had about leaders who only when they experienced themselves what other people were going through, or when through a conversation they remember how somebody treated them kindly or with compassion, how they said, whoa, I can feel it now because I'm going through the same thing now, or I went through the same thing myself, or for whatever reason now I can feel it, because now you're talking to that own experience, you're treating them with kindness, and they are human at the end of the day too, right? And they experience similar pains, or perhaps at a different level, I don't know, but they experience pain too, the pain that their employees may be experiencing. And it's such a powerful reflection, because I feel that we have the research, we have the numbers, we have the impact, and it's still, Jessica, as recent as a couple of weeks ago, the front page of the Forbes magazine, or Fortune magazine, I'm sorry, had the picture of Mark Benioff, which is a very an inspiring and respected leader. And the subtitle of the uh, page was "Efficiency is in, is empathy out," as if these were two separate things that you can't do at the same time, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on? I mean, like, why are we separating things that are so strongly interconnected?
Yes, it's both and. It's both and,
It's
not either
yeah,
or.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering, what is the missing link here? I mean, why is it that they are not getting it? Especially considering that we have all the research that has been, by the way, digested in an applicable, practical way. We have all the research saying if people are unhealthy, and they are not well, if they don't find purpose at work, if they are not in flow, they are not giving you their best, and they're giving you, I don't know, 5% of whatever they can give, and
Yeah.
that's all you're getting.
Yeah, and I think that, there has been this, everyone's so excited about the latest technological advances, and
Yeah,
technology's, filled with beautiful tools. It really is. But we have to balance it with, it's a tool, it has an appropriate place. Sometimes it's being used inappropriately,
yeah,
and that doesn't negate the need for these other pieces that we bring alongside. And
yeah.
so I was just at Wisdom 2.0
Hmm.
conference, their 14th conference, and they are all about how do we bring into this modern world these practices of wisdom. And it's a lot of the things that we've been talking about,
Yeah,
bringing heartfelt compassion into whatever we do, bringing service into whatever we do, bringing consciousness and presence and awareness into whatever we do. When we marry those two things together, some of the most powerful technological advances of our age, but we apply these skill sets, these practices, we use technology in a way that puts it in its appropriate place. And I think
yeah,
it amplifies. And so you talk about efficiency. Yeah, there are a lot of tools we can impose on people to help them be more efficient.
yeah.
I think one of the most efficient things you can do is turn off all of your notifications on your phone, every single one.
Which I do, by the way.
Start the first day of the month and turn off every single notification on your phone. Gradually turn on only the ones you can't live without,
Mm,
and that really serve you. I
yeah,
did this when I took a sabbatical year off. I actually turned my phone ringer off. I deleted all the apps from my phone that weren't essential for my daily living, which were most of them. And I turned off every single notification. And
yeah,
then at the end of the year, when I decided to turn them back on again, it was painful because I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I'm ready for all this intrusion into my life. But it helped me to realize when I started to feel that spinning up that was
yeah,
happening around me because the technology was pulling my attention away so frequently. It's like, oh, well, I'm not monotasking anymore. I'm multitasking. I'm
yeah,
doing stupid things like when I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody, all of a sudden I pick up my phone and
yeah,
then I get, caught in the rabbit hole of social media or
yeah,
something. And I
yeah,
forget
yeah,
why I picked my phone up in the
yeah,
first place. And so I feel like, this is something, it's a skill set. We have to constantly be asking ourselves, how can we bring our hearts and our
Yeah.
minds and our presence into whatever we're doing at work. And
Yeah.
helping leaders to think about, when was the last time you experienced this?
Yeah.
And how did that make a difference in your life? Those kinds of reflections are extremely important
Oh, I love it.
conversations.
And I love it. And we know it works. And at the same time, we've already tasted the flavor of the alternative, which is creating workplaces of individualism, ego, selfishness, competition, big, vertical hierarchies of, with everything mandated from the top. And we know that route doesn't work. We know that the route of isolating people, forcing them to be isolated at work because of what we reward, the feedback that we give them, the opportunities that we give them for growth, we know that route does not work. And the alternative is so much more beautiful, not just for work, it is beautiful for the people too. So to me, it is actually neither rocket science, not a thing that we should be doing so much of a hard work convincing anybody. It's the right way to go. Jessica, I think we have to get into a second part of this conversation because we still have so much to cover. I think I only covered like 3 of the questions that I had in my pages of notes for you, and I would love to have you again, for part number 2, because there's so. First of all, I'm so passionate, like you, less from a research standpoint, but more from, and I think you too, from a possibility standpoint, right? And the kind of world that we can create if we bring this concept of spirituality as purpose, connection, social connection, and transcendence to work to improve the well-being of our people. So, Jessica, thank you so much for being with me today and sharing all of these insights with the community. Thank you.
That was my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Enrique. And yes, to part 2.
We got to do part 2. And thank you, everybody. Please continue to be well. I hope you take, once again, these insights, and first and foremost, they are for you and you in your everyday actions. Now, I mean, it's doable. I mean, there's no reason not to do them for you, and then hopefully for the impact that you have at work, and especially on others at work. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Jessica. I will see everybody soon in another conversation, another session, whatever it is that we're doing at Hacking HR. Thank you.